Nice looking room today, everybody here. Thank you very much for being here this morning on this wonderful Thursday. I want to remind you, please, if you have a cell phone, to silence it or turn it off. I also want to remind everyone that the board meeting this morning will be live streamed. We're at the Mississippi Board of Education meeting for July the 27th, 2023. It is 10 a.m. on the fourth floor boardroom at Central High School at the Mississippi Department of Education, which is located at 359 Northwest Street, Jackson, Mississippi. So again, welcome. At this time, I call our meeting to order, and I know that Mary is on the live stream. So Mary, if you could tell us where you are this morning.
I'm in South Phillips.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you too.
I believe Wendy will be checking in a little later in the meeting, another one of our board members. She is our teacher representative, so they are starting school today. And as we all know, there's probably more important work than being here with us this morning, so we're glad she's able to be with her students today. But she will check in a little bit later. I will ask you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and for our invocation. Mr. McGehee will do our pledge, and Mr. Miller, the invocation.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And justice for all.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to meet today. Please guide our decisions today and help us make the best decisions that we can for the children in the state of Mississippi. Pray, amen.
Amen. All right, members of the board, you have before you the minutes from our June the 15th meeting. Those were sent out to us a little earlier for your perusal. This was a special call board meeting that was held on June 15th and June 14th. We did student representative interviews, and on June 14th was our budget work session. So may I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Mr. McGehee, I think I heard first, and Mr. Jacobs quickly seconded right after him. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same thing.
Abstain.
One abstention. And Mary, I heard you say aye.
I said aye.
Very well, thank you. You also have before you the approval for the agenda for today's meetings. Are there any additions, deletions that we need to add to the agenda? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
I got Mr. McGehee on the motion, and I heard Ms. Werner on the second.
You did.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. You also have the consent agenda. For those in the audience, the consent agenda comes to us a little early, so we have time to peruse it and go through those details to review and then ask questions of staff. So any item on the consent agenda that you would like to pull for general discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Pruitt on the move and Mr. Jacobs on the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. All right, we get to do one of the fun parts of our meeting today. We have with us a team of individuals from the Mississippi Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. And before they get up, I will tell you they have spent a lot of midnight oil and probably a lot of man hours and time and talking to parents and students. They are going to have received or honor the 2023 Cognia Values Driven Award. Very powerful award that takes a great deal of time from the entire process at the school. So come on forward and let's make a presentation to you guys.
Okay, so coming up, joining Mr. East and Dr. Margino at the front of the boardroom are Dr. Jeremy Stinson. He's the superintendent of the Mississippi Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and his leadership team from the schools. So Cognia is an accrediting organization that uses research-based performance standards to evaluate and accredit schools. And the Cognia Values Driven Award recognizes institutions that model the values and the values of Cognia through their efforts to improve student outcomes. This award champions schools and districts that dream big, stand for the learner, are bold and daring, drive potential, are tenacious, and build connections. For more than 100 years, the Mississippi Schools for the Deaf and Blind have met a critical need for students around the state. Both schools' commitment to quality education and continuous improvement is evident in all operations and areas of school life. Following the school's recent candidacy for review of accreditation, the lead evaluator wrote, "The professional staff of MSDB engages with learners to help them recognize their talents and potential, to identify relevant and attainable goals that support academic, career, personal, and social skills. MSDB promotes and respects student voice and responsibility for learning. As a result, learners engage in experiences that promote self-confidence and a love of learning." Congratulations to the Mississippi Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and Dr. Stinson, you are welcome to make remarks at this time.
Thank you. On behalf of our school and our schools and our district, I just want to say thank you to Chairman East, Dr. Boone, and Ms. Clemens, Dr. McGehee. Specifically, you guys served on our as agency reps for our committee meetings and interviews. Ms. Joni House, Stephanie Brown, and the whole Cognia team for acknowledging our hard work and intentionality during the process. It is a lot of midnight oil. You're exactly right. So for Dr. Davis, my new supervisor, who's getting ready to kind of walk with us the next step as we renew our strategic plan. And so I don't know if I've broken that news to her yet or not, but Dr. Davis, we appreciate you, to our staff, our students, families, stakeholders for their diligent work and support. And this team that's standing with me, this incredible team, they work tirelessly every week, gathering data, writing narratives, meeting with teams, and all other things that are involved with accreditation that many of you well know. They understand that no organization can rise above the constraints of its leadership. And we're reminded, we remind each other of that every single week. And so I have with me today Ms. Laquandra Jones, our Director of Special Services and Admissions, Ms. Paula McLean, our MSD Principal, MSB Principal, Mr. Eddie Spann. They lined up according to my notes. How cool is that? Ms. Pam Jones, Special Services Coordinator, and Mr. Tyler Griffin for Special Services Coordinator. Also, the big help, but unable to be here, our CFO, Ms. Allison Bradford, Dr. Antonio McGee, who's our Director of MRC and Transition, and he's the DTC. He wears lots of hats. And then Ms. Crystal Newsom, she left us to go to Vanderbilt to work on her doctorate in deaf education. And so we wish her the best, and we're really, really proud of her, but we'll miss her. Dr. Keith Schaefer, many of you know him. He was the former state director of Cognia before we lost him suddenly, unexpectedly. But most importantly, he was a longtime superintendent, friend, and mentor. I know he'd be proud of us for this recognition today. He told us every year, if you don't tell your story, someone else is going to do it for you. And it may not be the one that you want to be told. So thank you all for recognizing us today and helping us to tell our story well. Thank you.
I'll need to learn pretty quickly that Gene's going to take care of all those fine details for us, everything. Good job, Gene. Oh, Dr. Margino, it's your turn as report of the state superintendent.
Okay, we've had a fun 3.5 weeks. First, I saw Mike Kent here, and I do want to thank Mike just for the transition. He was phenomenal and a pleasure to work with. Just to give you a rundown on some of the things we've had. Of course, we had the Mississippi Association of School Superintendents Conference on the coast. I appreciate Mr. East, Dr. McGehee, and Mr. Pruitt for being there. It was a great time for our staff to be able to just give updates to the superintendents across the state, and also a time just to visit and kind of a relaxed atmosphere. So that was a lot of fun. Other conferences we've had that the MDE has helped lead is the Innovative Institute and Partnership. That's a partnership with the research and curriculum unit at Mississippi State. We had the Innovative Institute. We had the Mississippi Early Childhood Education Conference this week has gone on the coast, and I had the privilege to visit with them Monday night and, share greetings and so forth. But that's a good partnership with the Mississippi Head Start Association, the Governor's Office, the Department of Human Services, and the Mississippi Department of Education. Also, I know Dr. Van Cleve and them have worked this past week. There was the Elevate Teachers, which is a major MDE conference designed to inspire and celebrate our educators. So our team's been able to reach hundreds of teachers and administrators just over the last few weeks with professional learning opportunities. Also, this past Saturday morning, I had the privilege to attend a session called Coffee with the Superintendent with 31 teachers from across the state who are this year's policy fellows with Teach Plus Mississippi. So that was a fun group and a good time to just visit and answer questions. And basically what Teach Plus does is helps them learn about how policy is made and impacts the classroom across our state. As far as meetings with leaders of our districts of transformation, I had a great meeting the other day with Dr. Margie Pulley. She has done a phenomenal job in Tunica, and that's a great success story for the state. They're one of our districts of transformation that came under MDE in 2015, and that will actually return to local control January 1st of 2024. To give you an idea, they were a DNF school for a district for many years, and they are currently a B as of last year, and so it has been she's just done a phenomenal job there of turning that community around, so we're excited for that. Also, this past Friday, I traveled to Holmes County School District to visit with the interim superintendent there and to go over some things there. They are hopeful that they'll retain they had a C grade this past year, and they're very hopeful that they will retain that. Had a good visit over there this past Friday. As far as some of our partner meetings, we've been trying to really engage our different partners. Had a great meeting yesterday morning with the CEO of the Bauer Foundation, Dr. Travis, and of course they are so helpful across the state between the partnership of the Mississippi Department of Education and the Bauer Foundation. They fund the Move to Learn program, which many of our educators are familiar with, and I know you guys are familiar with, and provide financial support to the Office of Healthy Schools. So they're a great partner, and we look forward to continuing that relationship. Also, members of our team and myself were able to visit with the Legislative Budget Office's Deputy Director and the Budget Analyst to provide an overview of our Educable Child programs. That was a good visit. We also attended the State Workforce Investment Board meeting and look forward to that continuing relationship and being able to make sure that we're engaged to strengthen the connection between K-12 and the workforce. And also in strengthening our connection with the workforce development, we'll have a meeting next week with some of our business leaders from across the state. We'll meet here and just kind of, just really kind of a listening, a time for me to just kind of listen, but also to make sure that we're doing our best to prepare our graduates for the jobs of today and the future. Then on the national side, it's been a pretty busy couple of weeks, actually. I'm sitting here rattling through this. So on the national side, we, myself and Dr. Boone and Dr. Vanderfer had the opportunity to go to the Chief Council of State Schools Officers summer meeting this past week, and that was in Vermont. And that was a real nice time to be able to visit with some of the other state chiefs and just get to make those acquaintances and connections, and also learn about what all the Chief Council of State Schools Office held. So that's been really good. And some other good news, Dr. Boone joined Dr. Kerry Wright at the Education Commission of the State's annual policy forum to receive the 2023 Frank Newman Award for State Innovation. Our work in improving literacy and student achievement was highlighted throughout the conference, and they were awarded a trophy which is being shipped to the Mississippi Department of Education. It has not arrived yet, but we hope to have that here next month to share with you guys. Also, Dr. Boone and Dr. Vanderford and members of the literacy team, their teams were able to meet virtually with members of the White House to talk about Mississippi's recovery efforts following the pandemic. The White House had contacted the department to learn about the strategies that our state has used in moving student achievement forward. And I think really a big thank you is owed to the leadership of our state and to our district leaders and our teachers and educators across the state. I think we're going to find Mississippi coming out of this a lot better than many other places because we had school, and we were there for our kids, and I think our kids in the long term are going to be better off for this. So a big thank you to all of our educators across the state that just continued pushing forward. Finally, about the MDE team, I have enjoyed working with these folks here. We have an outstanding team here at the Department of Education, and they have been just a joy to work with, and getting to know them, been very impressed by them with our, basically had our big staff meeting and our, and then trying to go by and informally meet everyone in their offices, but just a really good team, and they've been a great help. So had a really good 3.5 weeks, and I've really enjoyed it. So subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Busy man.
It's been busy, but fun.
So in my report today, I don't know if you've noticed, the room is a little brighter today for some reason. My hunch is because it's the smile on Mike Kent's face, which I think is retirement coming out. So, Mr. Kent, if I promise you that knowing you as long as I have, and that this won't be a roast, okay? We're going to make this as nice as possible. But if you'll come forward, I'd like to share this resolution with you, sir. So come forward for us. I won't make you read your own resolution. Resolution. Whereas the Mississippi State Board of Education appointed Michael D. Kent as the interim state superintendent of education on April 3rd, 2023, to serve until June 30th, 2023. And whereas Mike Kent has demonstrated unwavering dedication and exceptional leadership in public education in Mississippi throughout his 40-year career. And whereas Mr. Kent has faithfully and effectively served the Mississippi Department of Education as interim state superintendent, and in his previous role as interim deputy state superintendent for more than 12 years. And whereas during his tenure as interim deputy state superintendent, Mr. Kent has played a vital role at the Mississippi Department of Education, undertaking various special projects assigned by the state superintendent of education, including providing leadership training for superintendents and principals, overseeing the successful transition to the state's A through F accountability system, leading legislatively mandated school district consolidations, and providing support to the state's districts of transformation and achievement school districts. And whereas Mr. Kent started his career as a teacher in Madison County School District and served the district as a coach, principal, and superintendent, and whereas as superintendent of the Madison County School District for over a decade, Mr. Kent consistently ensured high academic performance and facilitated the passing of 3 school bond issue referendums, totaling the cost of $200 million. Don't give him credit yet. Don't give him credit yet. This is for you. This is for you. He'll get his gig in later. I promise that. All right, here we go. And whereas, under his exceptional leadership, the Madison County School District witnessed significant growth, including the construction of 13 school campuses and the attainment of a unitary status by successfully gaining release from a 37-year desegregation order. And whereas Mr. Kent's visionary initiatives resulted in one of the district's elementary schools earning the National Blue Ribbon School designation, and the implementation of a program led to over 100 teachers earning their national board certification. And whereas Mr. Kent's commitment to education extends beyond his professional roles, as evidenced by his service on the Board of Trustees of Holmes Community College from 2000 to 2011, and his involvement in executive boards of the Mississippi Association of School Superintendents, the Mississippi High School Activities Association, and the Madison County Business League. And whereas Mr. Kent earned a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's of education in school administration from Mississippi College, while also completing the Self-Study Skills Academy and Principals Academy at Harvard University. And whereas in recognition of his exceptional contributions to the field of education and his alma mater, Mr. Kent was named the 2005 Mississippi College Alumnus of the Year. And whereas Mr. Kent has dedicated his life to educating students and has always responded to the call of service to advance public education in Mississippi. Deep breath. You ready? Therefore be it resolved that on this, the 27th day of July, 2023, the Mississippi State Board of Education recognizes Michael D. Kent for his contributions to public education in the state of Mississippi. Thank you very much for your service. And now the folks in the room will take a deep breath. You can say whatever you feel like before you.
So you have a long agenda, and there's nothing worse than somebody droning on. But the last board meeting in June, my last board meeting, we were pretty busy, and I meant to be more emphatic about thanking the team, and I didn't do a very good job of that. But there really is a remarkably talented team here. Ray and I have talked about that. And so I want to thank the team. And I didn't really necessarily work real closely with everybody, but you touch people moving along. But on a day-to-day basis, Darla Hammonds, Deborah Douglas, Rachel Ellis, Renee Hood, they were very patient and tolerant with me, so I thank you for that. And the executive leadership team, that is as talented a group of people as there is in the state of Mississippi. Dr. Donna Boone, Dr. Felicia Gavin, Dr. Paula Vanderford, Ms. Jean Cook, Ms. Holly Spivey, Mr. John Craman, and Ms. Erin Meyer. They are absolute experts in their domain. They are great leaders in their domain, but they're also great followers of this position. And so great leaders need great followers, and they are just that. And finally, I want to thank this group. I'm gratified, I'm humbled that you had enough confidence in me to turn over the keys to this great big bus that's 425,000 kids. That is an awesome responsibility, and I'm humbled by it, and I thank you very much.
See there, Dr. McGee, he didn't pop you back. So that's good.
I know.
First meeting today, our junior representative, Kate, is here for her report. So welcome to your first meeting.
Well, thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
First of all, I would like to let all of you know how excited I am to be here and work with all of you. I'm truly honored to have been selected for this position, and I hope that I can live up to the legacies that Charlie and Micah have left behind. This morning, I would like to share with you all an organization from my school district. I truly admire the work that this organization does for our community and believe that its story should be shared with you all today. The name of that organization is Commodores Care. Commodores Care is a nonprofit organization that began with a Facebook post. Ms. Molly Harwell had shared with her friends and family that if there were any teachers or students in her community that needed supplies for the upcoming school year, that she'd be happy to help out. However, the effect of the simple post was a lot larger than she could have imagined. Mrs. Harwell then received a call from the nurse at Lafayette Upper Elementary. Nurse Brandy Gossett shared with Ms. Harwell that she had a student that had no clean clothes and had to wear the same outfit to school every day. Heartbroken, Ms. Harwell went out to purchase shirts, pants, shoes, and toiletries for the child. And after shopping for the student, she brought her items to the school and ran to the counselor, where the idea of Commodores Care was born. Mrs. Harwell wanted to ensure that every child in school had more than just the clothes off their back. She began to collect donations of personal hygiene items, shoes, and clothes that would be given to the school nurse or counselor to then be passed on to a student in need. Mrs. Harwell then obtained the upstairs of a local store named Sugar Magnolia to collect and store donations. Things seemed to be going smoothly, yet unbeknownst to most, the COVID-19 pandemic would disrupt Ms. Harwell's plans. Now, school's not in session, in person, and students and families had no way to obtain the items given to them through Commodore's care because they were not at school to receive them. Students could also not receive free or reduced lunches at school. But Mrs. Harwell had an idea. She gathered volunteer faculty and staff members of Lafayette County School District to stand outside local grocery stores and gather donations from customers. Volunteers would then bag and deliver those groceries to families in need out in the county. An estimated 80 families throughout Lafayette County receive these life-altering donations from Commodore's care every week. A few months passed by, school was back in person, and Commodore's care is providing more than simply t-shirts and deodorant. Running out of room to store the clothing, hygiene, and now grocery store donations, Mrs. Harwell approached the Lafayette County School Board. She asked the board for a classroom in the new school building to store her donations and the vote was unanimous. With a now rapidly growing program that still solely runs on donations, Mrs. Harwell began to collect those donations through the car rider line. This was fortunately a huge success for Commodore's care, and the donations kept flowing in. Commodore's care also began to sell items such as t-shirts, hats, and fanny packs. Revenue from these sales would be used to purchase gift cards to Walmart, Five Below, and other various retail stores. During the holiday season, various gift cards were given to school nurses and counselors with the simple instruction of give these to someone who needs to smile today. Other gift cards and grocery store vouchers were given to families in the county that lost their homes to house fires or other natural disasters. Commodore's Care is a selfless organization with a simple mission: provide children with everyday essentials to help them succeed. Truly no child should have to wear dirty clothes for days or worry about where their next meal will come from. While speaking with Ms. Harwell about Commodore's Care, she explained to me that Commodore's Care was always about helping others. She also stated that she never pictured herself running this large of an organization. But like their slogan states, our project is done. And while I did not create an entire nonprofit organization like Ms. Harwell did, I am no stranger to the brutal reality of hungry children. In 2021, I worked with NASSP on the Student Leadership Advisory Committee. I was on the team No Kid Hungry was the national initiative. After reading what were called hunger facts, which are hunger statistics by county in each state provided by No Kid Hungry, I could feel my heart beat. Living in a small town, I never realized how prominent poverty was in my state or even my county. I'm proud to be able to tell you all today how Commodore's Care has benefited my school district. If other school districts take after Ms. Harwell, imagine how many lives could be changed. A simple donation box in the nurse's office or 2 free meals at school can make a lasting impression in the student's future. I hope that through my position on the board and through organizations such as Commodore's Care, we can work to ensure the safety, security, and success of every student in Mississippi.
Great job. Good job.
Absolutely.
Outstanding program. Before we move to our subcommittee reports, you do have at your place the subcommittee list, the current subcommittee list for the board. For those that are listening in, the board has its board meeting once a month, and then it has subcommittees that work with departments and directors in the problem solving and the work of the State Department of Education. So those are at your desk, board members. So moving into our report on state from our subcommittees, Educator Quality Subcommittee, Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you. We had a very good and robust discussion yesterday about several different issues. There are several on the consent item that we went through. There were a couple that aren't on the agenda anymore because we realized, and which I think is very important with the committee, is it's sort of like we take the idea, we toss it around some more and see where we need to tweak it. And as I mentioned in the committee yesterday, the public comments are read by MDE and by the board members. And as anybody from the community approaches me, if they have a question, I get this in the courtroom all the time too. Somebody pushing the microphone in my face. So, that's what that's for. That's the process. And I can say definitively yesterday that process worked. So anyone out there who has questions about what we do as a board or MDE does, take the opportunity to comment because we pay attention to it. The other thing that we strategized about is there's a backlog of teacher licensure cases, I'm probably saying it wrong, that have to do with breach of contract. And we roundtabled different ideas and strategy of how to fix those as well as to make this process more efficient in the future. And I think that with our discussion, we're going to have some ideas to make this process run more smoothly. So
Yeah,
we had a good meeting yesterday.
good report. McGee, your committee for school performance and accountability.
That's our report of the subcommittee meetings. The School Performance Accountability Subcommittee met on June 26th to discuss the state board policies related to the Office of Educational Accountability, the Bureau of Program Evaluation and Public Reporting, and the School Performance and Accountability Subcommittee. Subcommittee also met on July the 18th. We discussed the consent agenda, item 5, also amendments to the code, Mississippi Code 7-3, Chapter 1, the accountability, and then Rule 1.2, the School Performance and Accountability Subcommittee and Internal Accountability Subcommittee. We'll also have some things in executive session today.
Good job, thank you. Let's look at our board items, if we don't mind. Number 1 is an informational item. Dr. Benford. Good morning.
Good morning. So item 1 is a presentation regarding our spring 2023 kindergarten readiness assessment results. But before we get started with the background, I just want to, and moving into the analysis of the data, and then Ms. Beck will provide us an overview of the next steps for the MDE as well as the LEAs. But I want to follow up on the remarks that Dr. Morgino mentioned in his superintendent's report. We did have a very exciting call with the Department of Ed regarding this 10-year initiative. It's hard to believe that the legislation was enacted in 2013. But as we were having that conversation, Dr. Boone and our team, with the White House, you have to acknowledge not only the great work that Dr. Morgino mentioned of the teachers and the leaders, the parents, those that are outside the agency, but when we think about this legislation that was enacted in 2013, it has touched every program office within this agency. So if we ask today for everyone to raise their hand in this room that was part of this implementation, from the financial team to the legislative team to the technology team, I mean, every area has been impacted. And then a lot of the work falls on our communications team that has helped tell our story that's been shared nationwide. So it's very exciting 10 years later to be able to be a part of this. So just this board item with our vision and mission, as you know, it's the world-class educational system so that students are prepared. We're focusing on goals 1, 2, and 3 for students being proficient in advance and graduating from high school, being college and career ready, and then goal 3 for having access to the high-quality educational system. So briefly, on the next slide is just the background. I think everyone's very familiar with the Literacy-Based Promotion Act that was passed in 2013 that places an emphasis on grade-level reading skills for students in kindergarten through grades 3. We know that the kindergarten readiness assessment results provides the parents, the teachers, and the providers with the information about what they need to know, what children need to know, and what they're able to do when they enter school. And as well, this assessment also is used to measure how well pre-K programs prepare the 4-year-old students for kindergarten based on the work that the collaboratives are doing, as well as the 4-year-old classrooms tied back to the standards. So the next few slides are going to be a summary. You have your backup material that breaks down the results from the pre-kindergarten assessment results for the early learning collaboratives, as well as the other 4-year-old classrooms, and then the kindergarten readiness results. So we'll have, for each of those 3 categories, a couple of slides, one that'll focus on the scale score, and then the second slide will follow with the percentages. So we have 6 years of data displayed on each of the slides. You'll see the red in the middle indicates the 20 and 21 school years that we had the COVID impact. So the unfortunate news is we haven't been able to get our scale scores or our percentages in any of these three categories back to the pre-pandemic levels. But with our early learning collaboratives, you'll see that we're still falling short, even from our slightly down from the data that we received last year on the scale scores. The next slide is the same information except in the percentage. It's a little bit hard to see there on the screen in the lime green, but the percentage in 2022 was 65.12%, and then this year at 64.76% for our early learning collaboratives. And these slides represent the percentages of students that are at or above the benchmarks. The next category is our other funded pre-K students. Here you'll see we do have a slight uptick. We're not back to the pre-pandemic levels in any of the categories as I referenced, but our scale scores did improve from 540 to 546 post-pandemic. And then the percentages were up from 61.53% in 2022 to 64.47% in 2023 in this category. And then finally, the kindergarten readiness results. Still, again, unfortunately, not back to the pre-pandemic levels where we would like to be, but we're up from the 686 to the 695 there in 2023, with the percentages being 57.67% in 2022 to the 61.42% in 2023. So still a lot of work to do, and of course our goal with all of our assessments and accountability results is to get back prior to that pre-pandemic level and continue the upward trajectory that we had before then. At this time, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer those questions now regarding the data, or we'll move forward and allow Ms. Beck to talk about the next steps for districts and schools as well as the agency.
All right, so now that we have this data, what are we going to do on the district and school side? So districts and schools need to work on aligning their pre-K and kindergarten trainings around the science of reading to ensure their literacy instruction builds print knowledge, phonological awareness, vocabulary, and oral language. They should be hosting parent workshops that explain the kindergarten readiness data and how that data affects the student's progress and the implications that it has on their learning. They should also be using the Strong Readers, Strong Leaders website. It has interactive tools on the 5 components of reading that they can be using with their students, those parents can use with their students. And then they should also use those guides for student success. They should also leverage additional state funds to expand their pre-K programs, because we know the earlier the intervention, the better success rate we'll see. They should also be providing those young students access to high quality, knowledge building instructional materials. They need to be using this data to inform their professional development for those teachers, to help accelerate student learning so that teachers have the strategies they need to do that. They should also be strengthening their Tier 1 instruction to ensure all students have the access to the high quality materials that focused on tier interventions also, even for those pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade students. And then also making sure that they're building strong relationships with the Head Starts and the daycare providers to have those pre-K to kindergarten transition plans in place for those students. At MDE, our early childhood coaches will help prepare the kindergarten teachers and administrators of the high-needs schools to address developmentally appropriate practices in the classroom and support development of children's foundational skills. The early childhood coaches, the literacy coaches, and our intervention coaches are monitoring the consistency of the instruction in the collaboratives and schools through intentional job-embedded training, which includes coaching, modeling lessons, PLCs, and side-by-side coaching supports. We will also provide training that encompasses literacy and developmentally appropriate practices, offering CEUs and semis for those teachers and administrators. And then we're also going to provide some professional development on the kindergarten readiness reports and how they can use that information to target small group instruction. The Office of Early Childhood will continue to support pre-K teachers and administrators with class, implementation, and developmentally appropriate practices using comprehensive early learning observational screeners to measure children's growth in all areas. And then we're also going to share some parent resources about the tier process and what that looks like and the purpose of universal screening so that parents really understand what those universal screener results mean. I get a lot of calls from parents about that they just don't understand that piece, and so we're going to do some better communication on what they should be doing with that information. Any questions?
Have questions? Great job, ladies. These family guides are wonderful tools. Got 2 action items under the Chief Operations Officer, Dr. Gavin.
Good morning. Under item 2A, contracts, we're bringing forth to the board one item to present for approval, and it is a contract with Quadient, and that is provide mailing equipment. This is a mailing machine in the mailroom. So that contract is a modification increase, so we're seeking approval on action item 2A.
All right. Any questions for Dr. Gavin on 2A? I accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Miller with a motion.
Second, Mary Warner.
Ms. Werner with a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, moving on to item 3A. We have a grant we're bringing forth for the board to approve. The first grant is a grant for K-4 literacy for high-dosage tutoring. We have 6 institutions that applied, and we're awarding 6 grants under item 3A. You see the districts behind that we're awarding those grants to for a total of $950,000.
Go ahead, I've got these all lumped together for you.
Okay. Moving on to action item 3B, we're pleased to bring before the board to offer grants to 43 grants for the Mississippi Community Oriented Policy Service in School, otherwise known as MCOPS, for a total of $1.980 there. And as you know, our funding for that particular item is $2 million. And as we went over in our budget presentation last month, we were asking for an additional $1 million for $3 million for FY25. This is our first round. We're pleased to announce that we're awarding all of those $2 million funds there with $20,000 left over for training. Action item 3C is a grant for $700,000, and it's for the World Class Teacher Program, and this is a legislative mandate flow-through item in our budget. And our last action item under grants is to award the McKinney-Vento Education for Homeless Children and Youth Program, $1.359 million there for that grant.
Any questions from the board concerning those 4 grant requests or approvals? None. We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Mr. McGehee with a motion.
Second.
Mr. Pruitt with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Werner.
No, I said aye.
Thank you. All right, number 4. Dr. Gavin, you're still up.
Yes, sir. Action item 4 is approval of our FY25 budget requests. By law, we're required to submit this to the Legislative Budget Office by August 1st. And as we discussed last month in the budget hearings, so we're bringing back before you the actual approval of the budget. And you have the backup behind your board item, and our request that we're submitting for FY25 is $3.624 billion, and of which 84% of that is for MAEP. We're requesting full funding for MAEP, and that's $3,043,348,922. Again, that's 84% of our ask, leaving us with $447 million for general education other, and you see the items listed. There are several flow-through items there, as well as for MDE operations, $24,698,000, which is, again, less than 1% of our overall ask is for the general education MDE operations budget.
Thank you for breaking that out. We had asked for that at the budget hearing on the flow-throughs and the actual work. So 84% is our ask for MAP, 447 million is the general operation, and then 24 actually is the operation of just the MDE department itself.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions and comments on the budget? I'll accept a motion to approve.
So approved.
Mr. Jacobs on the motion and Ms. Werner on the second.
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Anybody opposed? None. Dr. Boone, I have an informational component. Very well. Thank you, Dr. Boone. Dr. Burrow, Dr. Robertson.
Good morning. I'm Alan Burrow, Executive Director of District and School Performance. I'll just kind of tee this up. We previously brought to the board the federal consolidated state plan in February of this year. We were required to submit an amendment to the state plan as a result of our addendum during the COVID flexibility period. And the department has since identified some additional edits that we feel are necessary to be included in this amendment cycle. So this is the amendment cycle for the upcoming federal identification cycle this fall. And so we're bringing to the board for your attention those changes that we want to submit to the U.S. Department of Education for further consideration during this amendment cycle. So we provided you a table of a listing of the additional edits that we've made in the corresponding page numbers. The first 6 items are some additional clarifications of business rules. So we're adding additional text to the document to provide clarification of business processes that we already conduct. So it's not a change to anything in accountability, but these are just additions or clarifications of business rules. And then the 7th item does have some change in regards to policy, so I'll let Dr. Robertson talk you through that.
Good morning. Sandra Robertson from the Office of School Improvement. And the 6th item the 7th item that we are bringing is dealing with the methodology for the schools that for the first time will escalate to CSI after being ATSI for the past 4 or 5 years. And so one of the things that we wanted to make sure was clear was that the alignment was sure with the reason schools were identified and the way they exit or they can exit. And so what we'll be talking about when we get to that space is really aligning the exit methodology, which is should be based on subgroup, with the way they were identified, which was based on subgroup performance. So the 6th item really is about aligning the methodologies for that group of Title I schools that are currently identified as ATSI, that have been ATSI for a number of years, that will, for the first time this fall, escalate to CSI. The second piece of that is when we shared with the field last year about the upcoming changes, we shared that those schools would still have the ability to exit annually. And so we want to make sure that that's clarified in our language in our plan as well, that those ATSI schools that escalate to CSI will still have the ability to exit annually. Any questions?
Yes.
I could tell. Yes, sir.
CSI is a point of discussion across the state in many of our districts.
Yes, sir.
And some of the confusion, I think, is what you just said. They're not really sure how in the world they got in there. And they're really not, sure how can they be out of there. They're trying to move it to whatever yard line they need to move it to, but not really sure what that is. So we're gonna make sure that we communicate this goal to all of our districts.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. When we put this out after today, I believe it will go out for public comment. So when we put that out, it will be clear that the exit for our ATSI to CSI escalated schools will be based on subgroup performance as opposed to overall performance.
And that subgroup performance, if they've had a dramatic change in their subgroups, how will that impact them?
So because the exit methodology has a two-part component, the first part has to deal with their performance relative to the lowest 5% of our Title I-A schools. That's going to have some bearing. That is the first criteria. The second criteria is for them to make some movement based on, I think in our language we have improving above the midpoint of a letter grade or improving a letter grade. And because our subgroups don't get letter grades, we have an equivalence or a correlation table that's been created that's used through deciles, and the Office of OTSS works with us through that, and we use that as the measure to help determine if they meet the second part of that criteria. So we will be very clear in what that looks like when we release whatever we end up with this fall after identifications, so that those ATSI to CSI escalated schools do know what that criteria is.
And how are you going to communicate this opportunity to exit?
So we'll communicate through webinars. That's typically what we've done. We've communicated through face-to-face trainings during our road shows whenever we get the identifications released. But we typically do on the front end prior to or right at the moment of identification the criteria for identification as well as exit. This past year, we actually went several steps further and did individual data sessions for each identification group to try to do a stronger job of making sure that it was clear what that looked like for each identification group.
But at the end of the day, we will have a roadmap for them to be able to exit. Correct?
So I believe so. That's my belief. In working with OTSS and accountability, I think we can make sure that that is as clear as we possibly can get it for schools and districts.
Now, Alan, have you already figured this out?
Well, the primary thing to know is that they have to be above the lowest 5% for that subgroup, and then they have to show improvement.
Right.
So, high level, that's that. We can look at data at a school level and tell them what that means in their data.
Good, good. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Vanderford, you're back up.
So item 6 is consideration of iTeach as an approved education preparation provider in Mississippi to offer a non-traditional pathway to teacher licensure. As Mr. Miller mentioned, this was a very robust conversation, or one of the items that we spent a great deal of time discussing yesterday in our subcommittee meeting. So iTeach made application to the agency to become a approved provider. That went through the standard processes in which we have in the Office of Teaching and Leading and with the Division of Educator Preparation Programs. That was presented to the Licensure Commission earlier this month in July, and was approved by the Licensure Commission according to process. So going back to Mr. Miller's comment about how we value the public comment process, you'll find that some items that the Licensure Commission in this case, or the Accreditation Commission, makes recommendations to the board do not require the APA process. So this is one of the items that do not require the APA process. We could and did move this item forward to the state board based on the recommendation from the Licensure Commission. However, in the absence of that APA process, in your backup material, you will see some questions that were escalated to the agency or concerns around the Licensure Commission's conversation. Not to say that anyone will, in the end, be opposed to this provider being approved by the state board, but at this time, staff feel that it's in the best interest to ask the board to remand this item back to the Licensure Commission for further discussion and conversation at that level before bringing it back to the state board. So we just want to, as Mr. Miller mentioned, we do listen to what stakeholders say around any approvals that we recommend to the board or any policy recommendations. And so this is just one that at this time we would like to ask the board for approval, or for you as the board to remand it back to the Licensure Commission.
Have a motion to remand.
Absolutely. Remand it back.
Mr. McGee. And then Mr. Jacobs jumped right in there as well. Any questions or comments before we take the final vote on that?
One question I would have, Dr. Vanderford and her team, regarding this, how much conversation do we have with our degree granting institutions about licensure?
We have extensive conversations with stakeholders. Now, this was not one that would have required that conversation because of the process for becoming an approved provider. But since we have had stakeholders that have expressed concerns, we feel like we need to address those concerns and answer those questions before we come back to the board
Yes.
and ask for approval.
Since those stakeholders are really our providers of our employees and our certified teachers, that'd be a good idea.
Is this a 30-day or at least until next meeting? Is that what we're looking to revisit this?
So the licensure, Dr. Murphy, I'm trying to think of the date, the next licensure commission, they meet every other month. So they met in July, so they won't meet again until September, the first Friday in September. I'm sorry, I didn't identify that date. I should have knew you were going to have that question. But they'll meet in September, so we'll add it back to the agenda for their next meeting. So it may be sometime before it is presented back to the board.
Any other questions? Motion to remand back to licensure made. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right, you have in front of you your consent agenda. Have decided not to pull any of those, so I'll take a motion to approve items A through X on the consent agenda. Mr. Jacobs, motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Miller on the second. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Warner. So now it comes the time for the reorganization of the State Board of Education, election of a chair and a vice chair. So I guess I'll take a motion to nominate, or whatever we have to go through here, attorney, to, okay, so Wendy's trying to come in, and we'll wait patiently for her. Thank you very much. I'm waiting for the word here. Wendy was trying to phone in. And I don't sing, so don't ask me to.
Waiting on, Dr. Barrett's trying to call him.
I see Wendy's iPad.
Right.
Wendy, are you with us? Wendy, are you with us?
Look like. She's muted.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, if you would, please state your location for the board minutes.
Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Thank you. We need a nomination for the chair of the state school board.
I nominate Mr. East to be the chair of the state's Board of Education.
I'll second that nomination.
There's a nomination for Mr. East. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Trustworthy people we are. Nominations for the vice chair.
I nominate Matt Miller.
Matt Miller, you up for that, sir? Any others? Anybody opposed to that nomination? Aye, or what are we going to do here? All in favor of Matt Miller?
Wait a minute, have we had a background check?
If I passed it, he'll pass it. No, just kidding.
Actually, multiple ones, but they're a long time ago.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you all very much for that little bit of vote of confidence. I'll try hard. Thanks to Deborah over there keeping me aligned on this script. We'll do well going into the future. All right. Do we need to consider executive session?
I move that the board consider making a closed determination of the need to go into executive.
There's a motion from Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. McGehee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Warner. Ms. Barrett? Ayes have it. So we'll pause the live stream for just a moment here and
I've heard more gripes about that. in the
Okay, we're
last
back up.
2 years than
Sorry.
We're back up.
The board has voted to go into executive session for discussion of discrete personnel matters in accordance with Mississippi Code annotated sections 2541-7, 4A and K, discussion and strategy sessions or negotiations with respect to prospective litigation or issuance of an appealable order in accordance with Mississippi Code annotated section 2541-7, 4B, and discussion of investigative proceedings by any public body regarding allegations of misconduct or violation of law in accordance with Mississippi Code annotated sections 2541-7D. All right, we're up. Well, I think.
I do this approval for meetings first and then report out. Welcome back, everyone. In executive session, the board voted to approve the interim state superintendent to reserve contractual funding needed by the deputy superintendent of educational accountability to outsource internal audits and program evaluations approved by the school performance and accountability subcommittee. Also on the agenda is, are there any board members who need permission or approval to attend a meeting? Does anybody want to report on a meeting that they have attended at this point? I think we covered that earlier. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, don't forget the other business.
Hold on just a minute.
Other business.
Let me get to that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good catch there. So we do have, we do need to announce today the following special called meetings that have been scheduled for the board. December 11th and 12th, and December the 20th will be special call board meetings. And the August board meeting will be held on August 17th here at the Central High School building in Jackson, Mississippi, on the 4th floor at 10 a.m. Now, motion to adjourn. So moved. Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Jacobs, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for a wonderful day. Appreciate your work.